dig into detail, but the dimensional fund advisors, and this is, dimensional does run 2 portfolios for us, so this is the small cap value portfolio, and we, just to refresh your memory, to be put on the watch list, a firm has to underperform either their benchmark or the median of their peer group, or both, for 3 consecutive 3-year periods. That's how all these funds have gotten on the watch list, and basically the watch list indicates that there will be a heightened degree of scrutiny. We look more at the subsequent performance. You've got the longer term information on page 2 of this handout. It shows that dimensional, this is on the past 4 quarters, they have exceeded, I should explain this, alpha means that that's the amount by which they have exceeded their benchmark, and the percentile is where they rank in their peer group. So dimensional has, for the past 3 quarters, has actually beaten their benchmark by somewhere between 1.5 to 3.5% over the quarterly periods, and their percentile rankings have continued to improve. This last quarter, as you just saw, they were ranked well above median. The improvement in their these are the rolling 3-year periods. Their shorter term performance for the 1-year period is on the back page here. It shows that for the past 4 quarters, for 1-year periods, they have exceeded their benchmark by significant amounts, and they have ranked well above median. So the recommendation is that that this manager be removed from the watch list going forward. I'll remind you, this particular fund is one that is going to, because they are small cap and they are value and they are very extreme in those 2 categories, they are going to have periods of underperformance. When small cap and value is in favor, they will recover nicely. We've seen that over time. So the recommendation is that this, based on their performance improvement, that they do be removed from the watch list. Newstar is one of our EPA managers that has been on watch list for quite a while. Their performance, while has shown some signs of improvement in the short run, looking at the 1-year numbers, their longer term numbers still remain subpar. So we would recommend, although there have been improvements, we would recommend keeping that firm on the watch list going forward as we look at moving assets around within the international portfolio. If we don't see continued improvement, then they could be a considered source of funds.
They also had an organizational change.
Yes, yes, thank you. They did. They, if you'll recall, we talked about it at the last meeting. They have now bought themselves out. It's 100% employee owned now from Henderson Capital. So that's another reason to keep them on the watch list. Organizational concerns there. Alliance Bernstein, this is the European equity portfolio. Alliance has, again, also has a value tilt, and Europe has been in a difficult place, and they have struggled significantly, really, since we hired them. They just seem to, while they are showing some glimmers of improvement in the last quarter, their performance has just been very challenged, during their entire tenure with MPERS. The regional strategies in general, I think, have probably run their course, and we will be looking at those carefully. We do have this global equity search on the table for approval this afternoon. Would seriously consider the regional, taking a look at the regional strategies as a source of funds for that global portfolio. So at this time, recommending that Alliance Bernstein remain on the watch until a source of funds is required. Capital Guardian, another one of our regional managers, they are the Basin equity manager, and their performance, both on the rolling 3-year periods, they've outperformed their benchmark and have ranked just about at median over the 4 rolling 3-year periods, and their shorter term performance on the back page, the rolling 1-year numbers has shown significant improvement. We would recommend for that reason taking them off the watch list, but again, they're going to be part of the regional strategy, so they may very well be a source of funds as we go forward. Acadian is our sole global equity manager. As Bill mentioned, they are a quant manager. The process is totally model driven, so when the market's very volatile, their model has a very tough time adjusting to short-term swings in the marketplace. They are showing improvements. The longer-term numbers don't reflect that so much, but the shorter-term numbers, the last 2 quarters, we've seen some improved performance. They were a strong manager when we hired them. Dr. Lowe mentioned earlier that we a lot of times hire managers and then they seem to have a difficult period. Acadian's really been a factor. I think the biggest factor with Acadian's underperformance has been their model, and their model not adjusting quickly enough to these big swings in the market. So we're going to recommend that they stay on the watch list, but we are feeling better about them. The shorter term performance has been greatly improved. And Acadian is the only fixed income manager currently on the watch list. They will be in here today. Acadian has been around since 1991 with MPERS, and prior to Aberdeen. Oh, I'm sorry, Aberdeen. Yes, I'm sorry. Prior to the 2007-2008 period, they were an exceptional manager. They consistently outperformed the benchmark. As Bill pointed out, they fell off the cliff in 2008, particularly the 4th quarter of 2008, so they're making up for that period. It was an instance of them having overweights to mortgage-backed securities, which just got hammered when during that time period, they held on to those securities. They reevaluated each and every security in their portfolio. They felt comfortable that the decision that they made to buy those securities in the first place was a valid one. They held on to them, and those securities have since come back in a very strong way. So, with that said, their shorter term performance, as you see on page 3, has been very good. They've been well above median, really in the top quartile for the 4 1-year periods that you see there, and they've exceeded their benchmark by anywhere from 3.5% to 4.5%. So they are making great strides. They still have that longer term performance hole that they're digging out of. For that reason, we keep them on the watch list, but I do feel like they will. Their since inception numbers are now back to positive numbers. So I feel like they still got some ground to make up, but the average is still very, very good fixed income answer for us. So, Mr. Chairman, I think at this time the recommendation would be to remove the Mutual Fund Advisors Small Cap Value Fund and the Capital Guardian Pacific Basin portfolios from the watch list based on improved performance.
Approved recommendation staff. 6 on the watch list, need 4 on, remove those 2.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask Ms. Monroe to come up. The TAL fund, the PIMCO TAL fund that we talked about earlier has now run its course. This was a closed-end fund that we invested in, and Misty's we felt like, I know PIMCO's going to be in today. I don't know that they're going to spend a lot of time talking about this investment, but I wanted you to really kind of hear how it went. It was a leap of faith to some degree by this board. If you'll recall, in 2009, PIMCO came in, they had this opportunity, it was a very brief window. Staff and at that time Mercer, was our consultant, we recommended that we try to take advantage of this opportunity, and this board moved very, very quickly to approve that decision. And so I felt like it was important for you to hear kind of how this thing all shook out. So Mitzi's gonna recap it for you, and we're done with that portfolio now. We've recovered all the investments that we're going to recover. So,
Thank you. If you'll just turn to the PIMCO TAL recap, I'm going to go over first. Just to remind everybody, the purpose of TAL. Back in March 2009, the TAL Treasury Asset-Backed Security Loan Facility program was created by the Federal Reserve to induce the private sector back into the consumer ABS and CMBS markets to replace the last financing after the relevant new issue markets largely shut down in the third quarter of 2008, if y'all remember. The Federal Reserve allowed private investors to borrow money at attractive interest rates, which typically were about 100 basis points over LIBOR at the time, to purchase these asset-backed securities. And eligible securities included new issues of consumer asset-backed security, new and legacy issues of the commercial mortgage-backed securities. The TALF loans that were issued by the Federal Reserve were non-recourse, fully secured loans with up to 3-year terms. So it allowed these investors up to 3 years to purchase these securities and then sell them back into the marketplace. With the borrowed funds, the investors purchased the discounted securities to hold until they became attractive to exit. The combination of the leverage that they received from the government and the attractive spreads offered very meaningful returns to the investors, which we in turn were investors in the PIMCO private funds facility that was launched. Just to go down later in the page, we invested in the PIMCO TAL fund in June 2009. Our initial commitment was $50 million, which was reduced down to 17.5 because the opportunities, the rapid improvement in the market overall, which was the intention of the program initially, resulted in a lack of suitable investments for PIMCO to invest in. So our $50 million commitment went down to 17.5. And the fund with PIMCO, they invested in, they looked for the higher quality securities. They invested in auto, credit cards, student loan, asset-backed securities, as well as the commercial mortgage-backed securities. And I've also attached a summary on the second page that just shows throughout the life of the fund what they initially invested in, what contracted, what they exited, and ultimately what the fund consisted of towards the very end. And overall, the fund was completely funded by December 2009. And they had up until March, actually 2010, to invest in these securities for the asset-backed securities, and then up to June 2010 for the commercial-backed securities. But they invested all the funds by December of 2009, and then they began making distributions in January 2010, and then the final distribution was made just recently in June 2011. Overall, the total distributions equal about $24.6 million for our particular investment in this fund, and so that gave PERS a capital gain of $7.1 million. The since inception return, IRR was 34.3, and the time-weighted return was 20.7. So compared to the preferred return of 8%, they did very, very well. So, does anybody have any questions overall?
So we have all the money back now, and our $7.1 million go on there.
The 7.1's already come back, so. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was a very successful opportunity, and quick action. The board was able to capitalize on that. Unfortunately, we couldn't get all 50 million to work, but we did what we could. The next item on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, is the manager searches. We do have 2 ongoing searches currently, and you were sent out information, the manager search packets. It's really the same information that's included in the books. For your review, you'll start with the fixed income, the Core Plus fixed income search. We are recommending 3 candidates for that search. Just to refresh your memory, this will be a $475 million mandate. And we're looking for a firm that will, we currently have Luna Sales in that space, so we're looking for another firm to also manage Core Plus fixed income. The 3 firms that are being recommended today are Janus, Prudential, and I might mention Prudential was a finalist when we actually hired Luna Sales, so they have come through this once again. And then TCW. Just to give you a brief recap, and I know you've all looked at the information that was sent out. The Janus Fund, Janus runs about $45 billion in the Core Plus strategy, $4.5 billion in the Core Plus fixed income strategy. They primarily are running this in mutual funds. They have only one separate account mandate in this space, but Janus runs separate accounts in other fixed income mandates, so we don't think that would be an issue. The fund is managed by basically 2 portfolio managers, and Janus tends to, at the time that the snapshot was taken for the information of this book, they actually had 21% of the exposure was in high yield and 9% was in the non-US. So they will use the full 30% plus sectors, if you will, within their mandate. Janus is a very bottom-up manager. They focus on security selection primarily, and that's the biggest contributor to their return. So they look at security selection first, and then they make adjustments on the industry and sector ratings. They have a very strong risk reward focus, so they are going to not buy bonds that they don't think the payoff is worth the risk that they're taking. The Prudential Core Plus Fund is, again, as I said, was a finalist in our last search. They also manage $4.5 billion in that space. They use a multi-portfolio manager structure. Both these firms, both Janus and Prudential, the portfolio managers have quite active teams with the firms. Prudential is a top-down manager. They are going to make the sector selection decision first, security selection second. They also focus on duration and yield curve management. And Prudential, at the time the snapshot was taken, had 18% in high yield and 15% in non-US exposure. So they balance out their plus sector exposure pretty well. TCW, you may have seen the name TCW and their fixed income teams in the press lately. They have had one of their fixed income managers who left the firm in 2009 has sued TCW, or actually, I'm sorry, TCW sued the manager for basically being accused of stealing the trade secrets and portfolio management details. It's quite a colorful suit and countersuit, if you will. There's a lot of intrigue and a lot of different players involved in this. It's not that portfolio. The guy managed the Core Plus portfolio, but TCW acquired a portfolio team from Metropolitan West, it's their strategy, this is their team, so all of that other is sort of noise in the background. It is something that we're a little concerned if TCW should lose the case, it could have some impact at the firm level, but they have assured us that they have insurance policies in place, and they feel like it will not have an impact on their ability to focus on their investment management going forward. This portfolio has 7 portfolio managers. Their focus is they have more risk control focus than the other 2 funds. They kind of split the portfolio building decision between sector and industry focus and the security selection process. So they combine the top-down and bottom-up strategy in their approach. They will have, at this point in time, they have 13% on high yield and less than 1% in non-US. So much like Loomis, when this snapshot was taken, they were focusing primarily on high yield opportunity set within that plus sector. These 3 firms, we had kind of run correlations with Loomis and with the other managers in our fixed income portfolios. These managers have very low correlations with those managers, so they're not all going to zig and zag at exactly the same time, which is what you want in a portfolio with multiple managers. All 3 of these managers have very strong performance, historic performance, and we feel like they would be very qualified candidates for the search, so we would so recommend. And I'm happy to address any questions that anyone might have.
Anyone have any questions? Lauren? Used to be fine.
That's their business. I move to approve staff recommendation.
Moved and seconded to approve staff recommendations. Any further discussion? Would you do that motion, September 19th be the date for the presentation?
And all I figure she'll have to have
Any further discussion on the motion? In favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also have ongoing a core real estate fund search. You were also sent the information packet for that search, and I will walk you through the 3 candidates. This is an open-end real estate fund, core real estate fund, and included in your packet should be a little handout real estate in general. So it might be something, I thought it might be helpful. This is an overview of institutional real estate. It might be helpful before you hear these presentations from these fund managers to take a look at this, just to refresh your memory. It has been quite a while since we've looked at a core real estate fund, so I thought it might be useful information as you think about real estate to peruse that before these final presentations. This is a $150 million allocation. We do have 2 managers in this space currently. The UBS Trumbull Property Fund, which is $390 million, and the principal real estate investment fund is $260 million. These were the original hires of the space back in 2005, I believe. Again, just to remind you, 4 real estate funds are very high quality investments. These are well leased properties. The leverage is generally less than 40% at the fund level, and most of the return from 4 real estate funds is going to come from income, not from property appreciation necessarily. It's really going to come from the income generated from the leasing activity. So we are recommending 3 funds for this search. The Heitman American Real Estate Trust is the youngest of the three that we'll be bringing for approval. This fund actually started in 2007, so it doesn't have a terribly long track record. There is some longer-term performance information included from some separate accounts that they have. So you'll see some of the performance pages that have just the 4 years, and then some where we've been able to look at separate accounts that they're managing in this strategy that they've got longer track records for. This is a $1.1 billion fund. It's only been around 4 years, but it's accumulated a good bit of assets. The leverage in this fund is below 16%. It basically has one portfolio manager, and its focus right now is on primarily on residential, which is apartments for the most part. They do have about a 12% allocation to non-traditional property types, which basically includes storage units. These kind of rent-a-place units, and several of these funds actually have exposure there. Probably the biggest, you're never going to find an ideal fund that has no warts at all. The biggest issue with this fund right now is just the shorter track record. We are familiar with Heitman, with the Heitman team. We are invested in their closed-end fund, the Heitman Value Partners 2 fund. It's been, we feel like they've got good resources with the fund, and they have a very short queue in this portfolio. That was one of the biggest concerns, and one of the, within the search criteria, it was required that a fund be able to take our money within the next 18 months and actually invest it. So there are some very long queues out there right now. The Heitman Fund has one of the shorter queues. The next candidate is the JP Morgan Strategic Property Fund. This is a very large, very well-established fund. It has $19 billion in assets. It's been around since 1970. Leverage in this portfolio is around 26%. It has one primary portfolio manager, Ann Pfeiffer. Again, all three of these funds are very well diversified by both property type and region. This fund, as I said, is $19 billion. It tends to buy much bigger properties. The average investment size in this fund is about $124 million. The other two funds are, Heitman's is about 3 times smaller than that. Their average investment is around $40 million. And the Morgan Stanley fund is around $30 million. So the JP Morgan fund, a big fund, takes big bite sizes. So it would be very different than the principal of the UBS fund that we're in now from that respect. The two warts, if you will, with this fund is, as I mentioned, Ann Pfeiffer is the sole portfolio manager. She's been there 40 years. And everybody says, oh, she loves it. It's the same story we get with every senior portfolio manager who's been around for a long time. They're never going to leave. This is their life. It is a little bit of a concern. So, we want to make sure that we feel like it's a very strong product, but we want to make sure that there is a plan in place should Ms. Pfeiffer leave. And the other issue is they have a queue right now of $2.5 billion, which sounds huge, but our friends at Cowen have assured us that JP Morgan has assured them that within 12 months they would be able to take our money, that they would have this. And part of that comes from the fact that, if it's based on their average account size, their average investment size, they're taking big chunks at a time, so it won't take them terribly long to work down that queue. That seems like a lot, but they have assured us that they could easily take our money within the next 12 months. So. The third fund is the Morgan Stanley Prime Property Fund. Again, this is a long-established fund that was established in 1973. It has $8.5 billion. This fund has the highest leverage of the three. It currently has about 31% leverage on the fund, and they have an upper limit of 50%, which is very high, although they've said that they've never gotten close to that. They just have it. So that is a little bit of a concern. We have asked to see their leverage record over time, and they have not gotten anywhere close to 50%. So my concern is that their documents say they can, so they conceivably could, but at this point, we have no reason to doubt that they say they would never get there, and so we take them at their word at this point. This fund is managed by 2 portfolio managers, again, very well diversified. It has the smallest average investment size is at just under 40 million, as I mentioned, and the highest leverage. And their, the leverage is one concern, and then we got a notice from Callan late last week, and that Morgan Stanley, as you know, is a bank in addition to being an investment management firm, and under the Bank Holdings Company Act that was passed, I think last year, there are some rules and regulations now about bank holding companies and having them sit on boards, or having them participate, how their boards and how their fund boards can be structured. So there will be some changes made to the way the board for this fund is being comprised. It is not 100% clear at this moment. We haven't seen the final documents as to how that's going to be structured. But basically, as we understand it, what's going to change is where the board for this fund previously could not fire the manager. It gets very convoluted because Morgan Stanley was the board and Morgan Stanley was the investment manager, and now the board has to be one person from Morgan Stanley, 2 people that are outsiders, but they're nominated by Morgan Stanley. And they can fire Morgan Stanley from the fund. They can't hire a new replacement. The limited partners would have to vote on that. So it's very convoluted, and we're working through all that, but I don't anticipate any issues. Again, we haven't seen the final documents, but my guess is it'll be something that we'll be able to work through. Callan has reviewed the information as it stands right now, and we asked them to supply us with a memorandum, just a document that they feel comfortable going forward, and they have done so. And we've had 3 conversations with the Callan real estate folks on this issue. So I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be detrimental to the fund, but we want to make sure that we stay on top of it, and by the time they come in, there should be a lot of clarity there. So Mr. Chairman, feel like we've got 3 strong candidates. Morgan Stanley has no queue at this time, so they would have no problem taking the funds. So all 3 have little quirks that you need to be aware of, but I don't think it's anything. I think they're all issues that we can really hash out as we interview these firms. And as I said, 2 of them have been around since the 70s. Heitman has been in real estate. Has been a real estate investor for many years. This happens to be a new open-end product for them, but still a very growing name in the real estate field. So I feel like these are 3 very good candidates for this search, and would recommend them to you.
Thank you for staff recommendations. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve staff recommendations. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, a little housekeeping. These books are the books that we're going to use when we have the final presentations. So if you would like for us to keep them for you and hand them back to you, you have copies that were mailed out to you, and they're black and white copies in the board book, but we will be more than happy to hold on to these for you and give them back out to you at the meeting. Because we would prefer not to have to ask Callan to produce 20 more. And so we can take them up, if you'll leave them at your space, we'll take them up and make sure that we reach you up. So you're welcome to take them home with you. If you want them, just bring them back, please. So, okay, so we have those two final sets of finalists, and we are recommending Monday, September 19th as the date for the final presentations. I know we have September 26th on your calendars as a tentative board meeting day, alternative date. Ms. Robertson had a conflict on that day, so we have moved it up to September 19th. I will give you a tentative schedule, and you can see that you're gonna need to rest up before that day, because it's gonna be one of those 8:30 to 5:30 days. So if it's the committee's wish, we can do bus searches on the same day. And I know for those of you that travel, that's probably preferable. It is a very long day, and we understand that, but it would also be staff's preference to have it all in one day, just so we can get it all done and move on. But that's kind of what we're looking at. So if it meets the committee's approval, then we can set September 19th for the date for those sets of final presentations. And I intentionally put fixed income first because it's kind of dull sometimes, so we'll liven it up in the afternoon.
What day of the week is that?
It's on Monday. It is a Monday. So if it meets the committee's approval, I would ask for September 19th to be designated as the day.
Did anyone have any discussion, comments? Here now, we'll leave it September 19th.
Very good.
Will y'all please email that date and the schedule out to everyone?
Yes, we will. Normally that's done about a week ahead of time if you find it before.
Since we changed the date, we'll go ahead and get it done.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. All right, Mr. Chairman, moving right ahead, the global equity manager search, which we've alluded to several times. We are